ever thought to yourself, man, what I could do with just a couple more inches? Well, lucky for you, I've given you a tool to give you all the inches you need. This speaker stand. Now it does fill a need, just not yours. So today, I'm going to tell you how I made these stands and all the fun, cool shit you can do with them, because surprisingly, there is actually one stand to rule them all. And I think it might be these things. And they just, man, they look ridiculous. That's so stupid. Like, look at the short version. So, what on earth are these things and why? Well, basically, I had this idea a while ago to make basically a rising speaker stand. And I wanted a stand that could adapt to any speaker for any listener at any seating position, no matter their height. So I started looking at options of how to build this thing. And originally I was looking at a bunch of pneumatic actuators, which is what is actually inside those rising desks. However, I realized that I would have to fabricate not only a top plate, but also a base plate. And more importantly, the electronics to combine the two actuators to rise and fall at the same level. However, this seemed like a lot of work for a stupid project that I kind of just want to theory verify with. So while we were moving into this new space, I realized that I had standing desks, and I was like, what if I just turn that upside down? Okay, now this thing sounds ridiculous, but hear me out, because it's actually, I think, a little genius. I'm not gonna lie. All right, so basically, these things are actually pretty inert, which is a big quality of a good speaker stand, is you want something that doesn't resonate a lot. These things are basically just a metal chassis with a hydraulic inside. There's basically no room for resonance in it, and acoustically, that's what you want in a speaker stand. The legs can lift about 320 pounds total, or about 160 pounds a piece, which is heavier than any speaker you would put on it. The legs that I got can adjust anywhere between 27 inches and 50 inches, which is both on the low end for very low and very tall for a speaker stand. And it can be variable within fractions of an inch in between those two regions. Quick note here, if you do look for your own speaker stands, not the ones that I got, make sure you keep an eye on that minimum and maximum height. Now, aesthetically, I actually don't think that these look terrible. I think the key to that is the spine on the back. I think that really kind of adds to the design a little bit. Now, this also has a cable management system, which surprisingly a lot of speaker stands lack. So see the benefits coming through here. I think it looks pretty futuristic. And even though this is expensive, it's still not the most expensive speaker stands that are on the market today, which is crazy, because there's a whole lot more that goes into this than any of those. Okay, so I took it off the desk, turned around, I took the feet off the standing legs, and I replaced them with these 6x6 metal plates that I got off of Amazon. I bought a pack of 6 for about 35 bucks, I think. And they're exactly 6x6 inches. They're measured very, very precisely. So I painted those plates white to match. I got some silicone feet, and I flush mounted some screws into the base plate so that it wasn't going to scratch the bottom of any speaker you put on there. So right now, if I do say so myself, this is actually looking fairly polished. Now, if you notice, the plate on here is not centered, and I'll tell you why. Originally, the design did not involve the spine. It was just going to be the plate and the legs, and that was basically going to be the whole thing. However, I noticed that depending on the size of the speaker, it might get a little bit easy to tip. It would never tip on its own, but it might tip forward if you mounted the plate straight on top where it was exactly in the center. If you had a big enough speaker in there and you bumped it and it was up high, it might tip over. And I figured I didn't want to risk it. I didn't want to tell other people to risk it. So let's move the plate back. Now, when you put the speaker on there, that ends up moving kind of the design to be a little lopsided looking. And that's where the spine came in. And this ended up serving two functions. One, it created a really cool aesthetic design to it, kind of balanced it out. It also provided this moving shape when it goes up and down, which is really neat. But also it provided what we actually need, which is cable management. That was going to be something that I was going to have to figure out a way to tackle in a really clean looking way. And I actually think that this is like perfect for that situation. And for those cable spines, each one was about 35, totaling about 70 on top of this build. Now I did really have to add a couple things to make this system work. One was these stands are not really meant to be placed that far apart. I think they have kind of a maximum distance from one another, about 6 to 7 feet if you really stretch the cable. And then on top of that, instead of having the legs pointed at each other, they kind of had to turn outwards. So I had to find an 8-pin extension cord that would actually fit the 8-pin design that they have on here. I was able to find one. It's only 3 feet, so right now I think these can easily get about 10 feet apart. But if you wanted to go longer, you'd have to kind of find even longer cables than that, which I was not able to find. I will link the ones that I found down below. I haven't been able to find any other version besides that one with the correct 8 pins to fit this. I think for the pair, that was an additional $25. Okay, now use cases. This surprisingly actually has a decent amount of benefits. One of them is that you can actually A/B a speaker, I think, better than ever and more accurately than ever. If you're like a position nerd like I am, where you want things to be exactly the same height each time, you can set up to 4 custom profiles on this specific desk system. You could put a pair of speakers up there for each one and just click one button and have it go to exactly where that speaker needs to be. You know, if you want to do 1, you set it to whatever inch. 3, you set it to whatever inch, and it's a press of a button away. Now, the other potential way to do this would be to basically put them on top of each other. This sounds kind of weird, but it actually works. Like, you have to have a speaker that can support another speaker on top of it, but you can literally set 2 heights or just control the heights with your own control of just going A and then moving it to the top one, B, back to A, B, A, B, A, B. It works surprisingly well, and it's faster and more positionally correct than having 2 separate speaker stands that you have to go back and forth with. Now, another use case for these is actually a super overkill standing desk setup where you have a standing desk and then you have the standing desk speakers or the rising speakers. So this actually makes for some pretty cool visual effects of both the rising desk going up and the speakers going up at the same time. It's kind of cool. I would say that depending on the speaker size, if you're over 6 foot tall, you might run into upper limit issues where the tweeter isn't quite going to be at ear level. You might be able to find this on a pair of legs that will get tall enough for that, but as these are right now, they don't quite get tall enough for the super tall users that might use this for that system. Okay, so some additional notes. There are holes where the screws normally go to screw into the bottom of the desk. You could actually use these for speaker spikes, and they would actually fit quite nicely in there. You may have to bore the holes to be a little bit bigger depending on which spikes you have, but that would work if you want to spike these. I swear, the further I get into this, the more ridiculous it sounds, but we're already this far in. If you're crafty, you could absolutely make a better bass than this, but this build is already really pricey, and the existing stand surprisingly works very well and is very stable as long as you make sure to set that plate back a little bit. So that you're kind of centering the weight rather than putting it all in the front. And what's even crazier about the design element that I kind of wish was on purpose but really was accidental is that the way those stems in the back of the mount and the base plate look, it almost looks like the cable spine was like meant to fall in there, and it does fall in there perfectly when you lower it down. It's very cool visually, actually, and it looks like it's designed to be that way, which I think is the best type of accidental design. And then another note is that I wanted these spines to be exactly straight when it was fully up top. So as you can see right there, that is a straight visual line. I had to take 2 links out of each spine to get it exactly that height. So it did actually come with a little bit longer of a cable spine if you wanted to get one. So just keep that in mind. It might be cool to kind of play around with a little bit. Okay, is this ridiculous? Yes. Is this overkill? Yeah. Is this way too expensive? Definitely. But it's something that I just wanted to do. I wanted to share, and I'm actually thinking about keeping it. Like, it's so stupid, but I love it. I don't know why. I should probably just do the right thing and put it back on the desk, but for some reason I just love it so much. I don't know why. Okay. All right, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. Till the next video. My name's Josh, signing off. Peace.